Hi, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's Wisdom, a recap for American Gods, brought to you by Relativity School. We decided to do this because we are all big fans of the show. We have a cool sort of mythology bent to our program, and so, yeah, we're going to dig into it. My name is Terrence Johnson. I'm the social media coordinator for the school.
I'm Gavin Pierce. I'm the president of the Mythology Club here at Relativity School, and I'm also an intern at the Joseph Campbell Foundation, and I'll be going into my junior year here.
Cool.
Will Lin. I am the chair of the General Education Program, also run the writing room and lab elements, and I also am an editor for the Joseph Campbell Foundation's Mythological Roundtable program.
This is going to be a weekly series. We started on the 4th episode, so we're about halfway through the season, but it's going to be a weekly series where we talk about the different myths, the symbols of the episode, what we like, what we don't like. So it's a good mix surrounding the show and the characters. And so, yeah, let's just dig right on into episode 4, which was all about Laura Moon.
Gavin, go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I suppose right off the bat, I was just kind of surprised that the entirety of the episode was focused on Laura.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think it's the first episode so far where there hasn't been some sort of like mythological prologue to the rest of the episode.
No coming to America sequence.
Yeah. And so, like, just, there was definitely a big, like, kind of structural difference with this one. And it was kind of cool, actually, to kind of, take a step back and, catch a little breath while, different elements of the story kind of pan out a little bit.
After a whole lot of the first few episodes being really rich in their imagery and motifs and dynamics and concepts, this episode kind of brought us back to a grounding emotional story to get us deeply invested in the characters, and also stirred. Like that episode was stirring to anybody who's ever been a lover. Just dealing with the that was tough. Before we get into those crazy things, I'm curious too. What do you guys think about just the human story of the affair?
I thought it was really interesting because, and it sort of dives into the myth, because a lot of times when it comes to mythology, I think we always hear the stories of like these great men, and they're complicated men, or they have tough decisions to make, or they battle death, and rarely, if ever, have I heard a story like that told about a woman. And the show does not make her likable. It does not care if you like her. It just shows you like somebody dealing with situations. So the affair was like, oh yeah, I see why she did it, because she was bored. She was just bored with life. She was maybe thinking about committing suicide when she was sniffing the bug spray under the hot tub cover. So it was interesting. I thought that they played it off very well. It's Dane Cook's best performance in anything ever.
I like that too.
Not that that's a super high bar. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I loved that Audrey got to basically tell her how she felt when she came back to life.
Yeah.
Not too many times. We see Audrey in the first episode, and she's like really vulgar, as she mentions. But yeah, when she was like, fuck your feelings, that was really fun. So yeah, I enjoyed the human story. I think that made sort of the supernatural stuff that was going along with her work really well.
I thought it was really interesting how passive Shadow actually is as a character at this stage in the story, and how active she is. She is an absolutely active character that makes her decisions. Anytime that you might think that she's seduced or pulled into a bad situation, it becomes very clear, no, she chose it and is actually leading it. Whereas, and then she says no to death, this type of thing, where Shadow at this stage in the game is very, passive. He's being dragged along, not unlike Neo early on in some ways.
Yeah.
So, of course, this is, I expect, is setting up an arc. One of my favorite scholars, Jeffrey Kripal, talks about the narrative arc of authorship, where you start passive and then you become an author of your own life. So I expect this from Shadow. But as of now, it's really interesting to see this dynamic between the two of them.
One thing that I was actually kind of surprised and maybe a little confused by was when Laura shows up and saves Shadow from the strange, like, technical, whatever you
Right.
want to call them, monster guys.
Yeah.
Agents.
Agents, yeah.
What particularly like how the hell she was all of a sudden so strong and could punch through their faces and bodies?
Yeah,
I guess
kicked somebody's spinal cord
yeah,
out. Yeah, that
zombie
was-
superpowers. Or
Yeah, because at first I was like, oh, maybe these things are just kind of like weak, like, and you can just punch right through them. But then she expressed strength in some other scene. So she seems to have like some power, like dead person strength.
I feel like it's, conquering death gives you some power, and then maybe it was just like sort of a nature versus technology type situation. So like they're the little henchmen of the tech guy, and they were just not prepared to deal with something that was like
Came out of the ground.
Yeah, it came out of the ground and it was
Yeah.
like supernatural.
Interesting. That hopefully that's a precursor to where things are going to go. I do hope that the technology people melt before the power of the chthonic.
I think that this episode was sort of the best blend of the myth and sort of the regular character arcs that they had. In particular, just starting off the episode where it starts off, you're like, oh, we might be in ancient Egypt because we've been set up to have these, they're called coming to America sequences. But then it's like, oh no, she's in a casino. But I was like, I see what they're doing here because they specifically, you have Anubis there. It's like, an Egyptian themed casino.
Literally right behind her.
Yeah,
as she's
right
dealing
behind her.
cards. Yeah.
So you know that we're set up to sort of have this different experience than would normally happen if you were just at a casino in middle of nowhere.
This seems to be like core to the whole story, right? Is this blending of realities that the mythic and the divine are actually not to be quarantined from reality. At least in this story, they're to be recognized as participatory and present. So even though this seems like just a casino Egypt, the fact that Anubis is there and she's dropping the Anubis ace of spade, a spade being the shovel, him being the undertaker.
Yeah.
Clearly it's not just a casino anymore.
I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in future episodes because, I mean, ultimately I feel like death is still going to come back for her. And it's like, I think there's even a bit where he tells her that, she's still going to go into that black abyss that she believed in life once she's done with the business that's, going on here, like her little zombie tasks and whatnot.
When you are done, I will complete my task and deliver you unto darkness.
In this story, Man is Search for His Boss Soul, and that's just one of the ways it's titled. It's basically a man contemplating suicide right before, and then basically his boss soul comes and enters into a conversation with him. And so this association of suicide being this, what precedes this serious duat, is actually really rooted in a strong knowledge of Egyptian mythology. I think it's actually really interesting that she goes on this duat, she goes on this underworld journey, Nikia, much like the Egyptian story, where literally her corpse comes back and they reanimate the corpse, right? Just like an Egyptian story. But it's really interesting that actually she is contemplating suicide beforehand, because one of the most famous stories that precedes the duat experience is this ancient existential text, like one of the most existential stories, and it reads like you or me talking about our own frustration with life and anyway, so I found that wrestling match with death to be incredibly inspired.
It's kind of cool that we see her like when she's first introduced as this character that's just very like lethargic and almost indifferent to being alive, like kind of what you see with the bug spray when she's under the hot tub, and then all of that leading up to the point where she dies, and then she's brought into this afterlife sort of place and told you're going into this void and there's going to be nothing there. And then the act of trying to fight that, like that's kind of when the wrestling match begins. Is it's almost like she's like, oh wait, like I'd much rather stay here in life than go into this void, when beforehand you saw her as very indifferent to that, maybe even wanting that void.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, now there's kind of a fight there, and it's like, I wonder what that's rooted in.
Well, it's so cool how Anubis has to respond to that, right? He has to say, do you know how many people have tried to convince me, not to do... And so this is just like the Islamic death God. So basically what happens is God sends an angel to get the earth to make humans with. And Earth is like, don't take this Earth, that hurts. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And so every angel's like, sorry, God, Earth said don't take it, it would hurt. And then finally God sends one who actually takes it. And then he comes back and God says, well, didn't Earth beg you not to take the soil? And he said, yeah, but you told me I had to, and you were God. And he says, aha, I can trust you to be the angel of death, because they will always kick and scream and beg for you not to take them. So this is an ancient motif for the figure of death, and they play it out really, really in a cool way with him.
Well, yeah, and I think that it's interesting which sort of angel of death that they've chosen to represent in American Gods. I was not expecting him to entertain her as long as he did with regards to her not wanting to die. But I think he's a very understanding person. But then, like, immediately, the God, he was like, I will usher you to the darkness, and I will not remember you. Is something really interesting. And then when he sees her later, when he's in the form of the dog with Mystery Beast, I think it is, and stopping the car, he's like, oh yeah, no, I remember you. It's really interesting that he maybe gained a little respect for her in that wrestle. Although I wonder how he feels about, like, the fact that it was the son that has brought her back, and how he really feels about the fact that somebody has slipped from his clutches. We didn't really get that in the...
Wait, who brought her back? I still don't know who brought her back.
So the coin from Matt Sweeney,
Uh-huh.
if you remember in episode 3, one of the sisters says that you had the sun and you threw it away. So that
was
sun
that
coin,
yeah.
his lucky coin, which is why his luck is so awful right now,
Right.
that he threw onto the grave because Shadow has this latent power.
Oh, that
is what brought her back. And then we see Shadow represented as the sun in her eyes by virtue of that coin.
Interesting.
So and now he has the moon.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So it should be interesting how that all plays out.
Then that, of course, goes back to that old motif of burying the dead with the coins, but also the Pythagoreans, the mystical Pythagoreans, they buried their dead with, like, golden tablets that basically were instructions on how to go through the underworld, somewhat like the Egyptian duat is like instructions for the underworld. And that's, of course, what she does. She successfully makes her way through and comes back.
Kind of gets, like, yanked back into the
Yeah.
sky.
Right,
that was
right.
really...
And then isn't actually the sun just barely starting to rise when she returns?
Yes.
Yeah. Which is, again, the Egyptian motif of the resurrection is with the sun.
Yeah, and it's calling her, and she just follows it all the way to Shadow. I'm interested to hear you guys' opinion on, like, as many people have mentioned that she sort of doesn't get this treatment in the book. Like, we don't really get, like, her full story. And maybe, like, the eye motif is also, like, representing us as the audience, being able to see another side to this woman. They pretty much tell, like, we know she had an affair. We find that out in the first episode, and then we see it play out. But it's really interesting to sort of dig into maybe the why of that, or actually see it manifest versus just being told secondhand.
It's funny, like, you would almost expect to hate her more by seeing it, but I don't think that's the effect.
No.
They really, like, humanized it all, and you were
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I mean, now I guess I can see where she's coming from. And, the fact that, like, she goes back to him and she ends up, like, saving his life and everything when she does come back from the dead it's almost like a redemption kind of story, I think, her resurrection.
And that is one of the key motifs of resurrection, right? Redemption. And then if you go to Horus, who the kind of ultimate resurrected, or the kind of newborn deity at the sunrise, with representing the resurrection of Osiris, one of the first things that he does is enacts the wrath of his father and just brings down the blood. He destroys all of the enemies. So it's kind of, so she's returns in this redemptive way, and then redemption and revenge can be conflated, and so I found that to be really interesting and really true to the tone, the archetypes, the motifs, but also situated really nicely in the story.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything she could do to be redeemed in my eyes, but but I'm interested to see the journey that she's going to go on. So yeah, that was a good first one.
Yeah.
I was excited to have this conversation. We'll be back next week talking just the 5th episode, because we have recapped everything that has happened so far. So yeah.
Wednesday's wisdom.
Wednesday's wisdom.